really appreciate it. I love the work that you guys are doing. My name's Caroline Peani, and I live on Vashon Island in Washington. I live on a 7-acre homestead here. Vashon Island is an island in the Puget Sound that is, as the crow flies, really close to Seattle, only about 10 miles, but we're an island and we don't have a bridge, and it feels very different here. It's very rural here. It's a tight-knit community of people who are living off the land, who are artists, who are creative small business owners. And so there's a lot of creative energy and connection to nature in the community here, which is a lot of why we chose to live here. I live here with my husband and our 2 children. We have a 14-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl. And so we live here in the woods, as you can see kind of behind me. We have, in the Northwest, we have a lot of evergreen. Washington's known as the Evergreen State, and we live in the midst of this beautiful evergreen forest, and even here at the end of December, there is a lot of green. And we have about a 2-acre patch cleared in the midst of this forest where we do a lot of gardening, and we have fruit trees and bees and chickens and goats. So
that's amazing.
Very full life here in the woods.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, do you guys have a lot of wild animals around your area?
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting that how we really become accustomed to that. We have deer in our yard every day. In the spring, the fawns are born. And so in the springtime, we'll often see mother deers with little ones that are spotted, and we get to know them. Like we follow them, and it's like, oh, they're losing their spots, and they're playing together, or here comes that buck again with the 3 points. And yeah, for sure. Deer for the most part. There's some coyotes on the island. We have a lot of raccoons, rodents, lots of small creatures, field mice, birds, lots and lots of birds, and all kinds of insects, and so a lot of animals.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
It's nice to know. You'd never feel alone, it feels like.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
One of the things that I really love to do here is foraging. And so the different times of the year, there are different things going on. And right now we're getting to the end, I think, but we've still got mushroom season going on. And we have some really beautiful chanterelles in the woods here. And so, that takes me into the woods. And in the summertime, we have all kinds of berries. Beautiful edible berries, and we have a huge patch of nettles in our field. And so for most of the spring and summer and fall, I don't know if a lot of people here, it's so easy. You can't live without knowing what nettles are. They're
I have
everywhere.
no idea what they are.
Yeah, it's a wild herb. And it has a lot of great medicinal qualities, and it's a really good food too. It's very high in protein, and so it's a great resource to have. And so I say all of that, like, there's so much to connect to here. There's so much stuff that's going on here, and we have our attention definitely on that.
So our second question is, could you tell us a little bit about how you started your journey towards living in a place like this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've done a lot of reflection on what it is about having this kind of lifestyle that's drawn me in, and I can't really remember like there's not like an event or a mentor or something that I feel like happened in my life that caused me to make this decision. It feels like it's always been part of the design.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, we always lived in small towns and there were woods around. I think that my love for nature or for this kind of lifestyle really just grew with me. It's not something that happened as an event or in connection with, with any sort of thing that I experienced or a mentor that I came across. That we always lived in. When I was a child, we always lived in small towns where the woods was nearby, and it was part of what was natural to me to go out into the woods and play. And when I was a teenager, we lived near a lake, and I would walk along the edge of the lake and into the woods and into, along the streams that fed into the lake. And that was like, even as a teenager, like that's what I did when I was stressed and I needed to like have some alone time or relax or regroup. And I had a really wonderful friend in high school, and we did a lot of hiking and camping together. I lived in the southeast, and we spent a lot of time in the Appalachian Mountains and walking pieces of the Appalachian Trail and camping. And then when my husband and I got married, we went to South America, and we spent a couple of months trekking and in the Andes and getting to know Patagonia and southern Chile. And I've just always had this great love for nature and wanting to be near it. I started to really get interested in the food aspect of it, or the kind of cultivation of the land and permaculture and local eating. Maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I was a part of a community garden. I lived somewhere where there was a farmer's market that I got into the habit of regularly going to. And
where was this? The community garden?
Yeah, it was in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
And we lived in a townhouse there, so we didn't have a place really to grow any of our own food. And so we participated in a community garden, and we bought a lot of food regularly from the farmer's market. And that got me really interested in the local food movement. And as a matter of fact, around the same time, this was probably starting about 10 years ago, my mother-in-law had a piece of property with a house on it in the Shenandoah Valley, and that's in the western part of Virginia. And she had a lot of acreage, and we thought we would make a go of doing some farming and, in the summertime. And I had a big herb garden going, and we lived about 2 hours away, and I had this corporate job. And at the end of the week on Friday, we would drive up there and we would do this big harvest. And on Saturday morning, I would get up really early with the car loaded up with herbs and flowers and drive it down Saturday morning to the farmer's market. And I didn't make any money doing that. It became clear that that wasn't going to be a career for me, but there was something like really enriching about it. Like there was something really soulful about that. And, I think those early experiences just really got me on this path of wanting to have a life where we could be in a place that we could do more of that for ourselves.
Yeah. Wow. So my second question is there a specific part of nature or, your lifestyle that you're very passionate about?
Yeah. I think that there's really two things that are really important to me. One of them is being in connection with nature for the sake of staying centered and grounded, for the sake of being healthy physically, emotionally, and having myself grounded in what's important, but also, what's important to me and what's important in the world, but also with an awareness of being a part of something bigger. With these huge trees all around us, it's an easy reminder that I'm part of something bigger that I can't control. And I just think that that's a really great thing to have present in my life. It influences how I am, how I move through my work and my relationships, and I think it just improves the quality of my life. So there's that piece of it, and then I think the other piece that really weaves in with it is this work that I told you about before, that I do around permaculture. And so permaculture being a way of integrating with nature, a system so that you create permanence, a culture of permanence. And so the concept of permaculture, which I really love, I think it's an amazing antidote in this very busy time, this very busy generation, very busy era, in which the principle of permaculture is that you create systems where what you put in is less than what you put out. So you're getting more than you're giving. You don't have to work hard for things. And so you set systems up so that nature can do what it does, and you get abundance as a byproduct of that. And so that's studying permaculture and permaculture design has really influenced how we live here on a lot of dimensions. So we heat our house primarily with wood that we've harvested on our land. And my husband's a woodworker too. He does furniture design, and he's actually out there now milling up a tree that fell in a storm a week ago. Wow. So that's like that just gets handed to us, and then there's the physical labor of that, but we do that instead of going to the gym. It's like it's all integrated in that way. And yesterday we've just cleaned out our beehives for the winter, and our primary goal was to take care of the bees and to try and get them to survive and help them survive for the winter. And they gave us this gift of, we have 2 gallons of honey now.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
And
wow.
We did very little work for that. And similarly, like the way that we're setting up our water use, particularly for irrigating the garden and so forth, is really making the most use of the rain when it happens and capturing it, and making the best use of the sunlight, and working with the seasons and so forth. And so, developing systems that allow us to be, I guess the best word for it is like efficient, so that my goal with the living on a homestead was really like, I want to have fun. I want it to be work, because it feels good to do work. It feels good to do physical work and get, out in the elements and get energy. Get your blood pumping and get exercise and get a little sweaty and dirty. Like, that's good, honest work. And I love that, but I don't want it to get to the point where it feels like I don't want it, where it's drudgery or it's a chore. And, so far, I'd say it's going really well. I think I told you before that we produced 300 pounds of vegetables and this year, actually 400 pounds if you count the grapes.
Oh my
and
gosh. It's ridiculous.
Just an incredible abundance of food. And I have to say, I've been working. I work, my husband works, we do spend a fair amount of time here on this stuff, but it's just really integrated into our life.
So I have a question. So why is it that people are not so aware of permaculture and how it's a lot more efficient, like you said, compared to the amount of work that you put on? Why is it that a lot of people are not practicing it outside of the communities that do practice it? I hope that that's a good question because it just came up in my head.
I think it's a really good question, and I think it's a really rich question that has a lot to do with the history of agriculture in our country and how, since in the last 60 or 70 years, we've moved away from a system of backyard farms and small scale farms to monoculture agriculture and all of the complex subsidies and big company money. And, I think that it's a pretty complicated issue that I'm not sure that if it had the designers of moving towards a system where a few people could grow the food for the masses, that probably seemed like a good idea in a time of scarcity, earlier in our history. And the consequence of that is that we've detached from where our food comes from, and a whole other set of consequences around the impact of monocultures on the environment and are just, it's impacted our food system in a way that maybe wasn't anticipated. And, with the current objective that you want to grow as much corn as possible or as much tomatoes as possible in one place, and only tomatoes or only corn or only beans, that is the antithesis of permaculture. Permaculture is about having great variety, and it's not efficient from the standpoint of the metrics that the big agriculture, the metrics that they have set up. I don't know if that starts to answer your question. I think that's probably for a whole nother series of dialogues, right?
Yeah, it seems very complex. How does one even approach a lifestyle like you are living right now? And what is an advice that you could give to everyone else out there watching this video who is interested in your work? Yeah, for sure. Well, I would say, I say two primary things that I would suggest. One of them is shop local. Support your local businesses, particularly your local farmers. Go to the farmers markets. Make friends with the farmers. Ask them about how it's going, what's growing, what's not growing, what's in season, what's not in season. And, I think for me, that was the beginning of my awareness about that, and really bringing me connection with the food that I ate, and also felt really great to support, this movement. And there are farmers markets now everywhere around the country, which we're so fortunate to have. And, I think even in New York City, there are amazing farmers markets. And this time of year, you're likely to find really different stuff than you find in the summer, which is in itself really interesting and eye-opening. Like, maybe I shouldn't be eating blueberries right now, Like, if I wanted to eat blueberries now, maybe I should have put some in the freezer, or I should have dried some in the summertime. And, to just kind of know what's going on at the farm in different times of years and different times of the year, and to follow that. So that's the first thing that I would say. And then the second is about nature connection. And there are more than a couple. There are some really interesting movements happening in the country right now. Richard Louv
who wrote the book The Last Child in the Woods, and also more recently a book called The Nature Principle, is really the central point of a really interesting movement that's getting people to go back to nature, to spend time in nature. And he's really advocating that in a time where we are so technologically connected, we need more than ever to go to the park. And when we're in the park, to really connect with what is there, to connect with other living beings, to feel ourselves, to feel sensation of the wind, the warmth, to listen to the birds, that's really enriching in a way that connects us to who we are as human beings. And we need that even more now in this time. So Richard Louv has some really interesting work out that I'd encourage anybody to read. The Nature Principle is his more recent book. And he's also, in different parts of the country, there are nature groups that are coming together and using community to help each other, like in nature clubs and things, get out into nature. The other is there's an umbrella organization called 8 Shields, and they have a website, 8shields.org. And the 8 Shields organization have a methodology called coyote mentoring. And there are a number of schools around the country that offer programs of different sorts, from weekend to ongoing programs that are nature connection programs. And I've studied a fair amount with them. I use some of that methodology in my work as a life coach and a leadership coach. And I find it really powerful because through really connecting with nature, so not just going for a walk in Central Park and while you're on the phone, but going for a walk in Central Park and counting how many different bird calls you hear, or taking a walk and bringing your attention to the smells that are there, or walking in a really intentional way where you're maybe practicing to be a fox or something and walk really slowly and unheard, and then just paying attention to how the birds or the squirrels respond to that versus your normal sort of I'm a human, so I rule the world.
Yeah.
Things. Through those types of practices, this coyote mentoring approach, the coyote mentoring approach is a whole sequence and a whole kind of library of practices like that help people in a fun way connect with nature. And what the founders of that organization have found is that when people connect on a regular basis with nature in that way, these characteristics, these almost like personality characters, or these kind of skills, skills start to develop. And he calls them indicators, that John Young, who's the founder, calls them indicators of awareness. And they're things like becoming more, you're able to both be present in yourself and connected with what you care about, but you recognize that you're part of something bigger. That you can feel a sense of awe and reverence for a broader world, that you can just have an instinct, not because you should or you feel you have to meet an expectation, but because you really want to help others. And that you're able to be more focused, that you are able to develop a skill of keeping your attention on what requires your attention and not getting distracted by a lot of things. And so there's a number of things like this that he's found, but, by and large, it's really a package, I think, that is a foundation for a really strong culture. If people can develop these skills, then we can get along with each other better and be more productive and happy.
I will put the links for the books that you recommended below this video so everyone can check them out. Thank you so much, Caroline. This was a great interview, a lot of great points shared.
Good. I hope the viewers enjoy it.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure they will.
you can put my contact information too if you want. I have a website. It's caroline.peani.com, and I have a blog there where I blog about nature connection and personal development.
Yeah, I remember checking it out, and you have really great posts there, and they're all nature related, so all our viewers can go to that link and check Caroline out as well. So thank you, Caroline.
Yeah, thank you.